and I know you're trying to avoid the conversation, but in relation to this series alone, your man Jayson Tatum, if I was a Boston fan, he had a great playoff run, but in relation to these NBA finals, he was disappointing. And there's circumstances around that as to why he played like he did, but the fact of the matter is he was disappointing. The numbers he put up, just the way he played, he looked like a guy who the Warriors just broke him towards the end. He just didn't carry himself with the same kind of stature as he had throughout the entire playoffs where, you know, he commanded, he walked around the court and commanded a presence like he was the best player out there. And by the end of Game 6, he didn't have that anymore. And I was surprised to an extent the way he just whittled away almost as the series went on to somewhat of a non-factor. Really, I think he had 2 points in the second half of Game 6, and he played the majority of minutes. He looked like someone who had enough, and that is perfectly reasonable because I think he was top 5 in minutes during the regular season. He played 1,000 minutes, I think it was, in the playoffs. Like, this guy played heap, and he just looked knackered. And you're right, he's 24 years of age. Like, this is not unexpected to go through this. But regardless, it was still disappointing. And just some of the things I saw from, like I told you the stats on our last podcast through 4 games where he was shooting 45% from 3, yet 30% overall from the field. He couldn't make anything at the rim. And there was a play in Game 6 where he has a fast break in transition. He's got one guy ahead of him in Draymond Green, and he goes into a Euro step and then tries this really like circus layup, which is not even close. And I'm just thinking to myself, at no time did I ever see him go to the rim and want to take contact. Like Jaylen Brown, I think it does it really well, where Jaylen Brown will actually see a defender in front of him, initiate contact, like bounce off the defender and still get the finish. As Tatum, too many times in the series, I saw him shying away from contact basically and trying to get these cute little circus finishes to go, which when they do, it looks great, looks fantastic. But the reality was they weren't falling. Like he was shooting like less than 30% from within the 3-point line. It just, the fadeaways weren't there. And all this talk about, you know, him comparing himself to Kobe and stuff. Well, again, maybe, you know, the Warriors get away with this talking because they've done it before, right? And the Warriors knew after Game 3 they were 2-1 down, yet they were still talking their shit. Klay Thompson said, this feels like 2015. Draymond was getting into beef with CJ McCollum saying, oh, you're ringless and the Boston Celtics will be too. And they can talk their talk because they walk the walk. And right now, I just think Tatum with the Kobe stuff is just maybe do something first. And it's the same with a lot of these young, and it's just the new NBA and the culture, really, of not just the NBA, but maybe the world in general, where you've got Tatum, you've got, you know, we saw the Grizzlies, a young Grizzlies team, and how happy they were with themselves. Let's just put it that way. So it's it's really interesting. But like, talk me through from a Tatum standpoint what you saw in those finals.
I saw a young guy in his first NBA finals, to be honest. And the Boston Celtics, again, I'll use Draymond's quote, the 82-game players versus the 16-game players. That number one defense that they were in the NBA, Giannis gave them 240 pieces. Butler gave them 240 pieces. Curry just averaged 35. And those first 4 games, he had no help. So they had a fantastic regular season, but their youth and inexperience, that we had no business winning. My Miami Heat, I'm referring to. We had no business winning that Game 6, and to not close it out there, to me, I think they lost the series. When Curry went for his 43, that's where you lost the series. And then to lose a game when Curry goes 0 of 9, Tatum's Game 4, I think I'm referring to now, Game 5.
Game 5,
when did Curry go over 9? Is that Game 4?
Game 5.
It was Game 5. Yeah. Game 5. He went 16 points he scored of 9, Tatum had his most efficient game, I guess you can call it that. Smart scored 20, like literally everything went well, and you couldn't close out that game. To me, that was like a nail, and to me, that's where the youth and inexperience and the youth and inexperience versus the experience and maturity of the Warriors really stuck out. So to see, obviously, he played the large minutes. He was primary initiator for a lot of the basketball game, and he can pass, but that he's not a natural, like you and I. So there's playmakers and there's passes, and some of those shots in there he'd never really been in a position like that, to be guarded like that, for a team to be focusing on him on that. And then I think he was almost getting, because I think the Warriors sensed how tired he was, and I saw Curry calling him over for some pick and rolls there. So to me, that was a young guy who in his first NBA finals just getting a taste of what it's really like to go up against a dynasty, for lack of a better term. And obviously didn't watch it at the time, but like LeBron James, the way they talk about him going up against the Spurs in 2007 for his first time, you just saw like him getting picked apart by the Spurs, and so it was very similar in that regard. But to me, I think I said a while ago, Tatum, I still think can be the best player on a championship team. I think he's ahead of schedule, and I think he's just a couple more like years of, I guess, being battle tested now.
Yeah.
And I think when he realizes just how good he can be, I think he has top 5 NBA player potential with his length, size, and just confidence as he grows. And I just think it was a young team that was just outclassed in so many different aspects.